hemp's going to be very important. When hemp's legalized, hemp's going to be, for our generation, what soybeans and peanuts were for George Washington Carver. I mean, we're going to have an explosion in products that we can make out of hemp. It creates all types of biodegradable plastics. We have all these wonderful materials that are much stronger that the petrochemical industry only wishes they can make out of hemp, right. Out of something that wasn't hemp. But you know, it is important for our nation's farmers too, because it will probably be the University of Kentucky, and the Kentucky Hemp Farmers Association is one of the biggest lobbyists for the legalization of hemp farming. There was a study done at the University of Kentucky that was basically saying that if hemp was legalized, it would be one of the biggest cash crops in America. It would, farmers would be making far more off hemp, need no subsidies, unlike tobacco, which is our largest crop or cash crop right now. And even more important, it's more important than cotton, because cotton's our largest fiber right now that we get, and hemp produces fibers that cotton can't even produce, that we're putting research into, wasting research on cotton when we know that we can grow hemp and make fibers that are stronger than cotton. And cotton destroys the soil. It destroyed the southern soil, and that's why we needed legumes, nitrogen fixating plants like soybeans and peanuts grown and rotated throughout our crops in America. And that's why we're going to need a crop like hemp that can replace corn and cotton right now, because corn's where we're getting our biofuels from, cotton's where we're getting our textiles from. We could get both from hemp, restore our nation's soil. It does not need intensive irrigation. It does not need intensive nitrogen-based fertilizers. Hemp's a weed. It will grow anywhere in the United States. Mostly, it is a very hardy plant.
A couple side notes real quick on the hemp thing. 50% of the pollution from agriculture comes from cotton. Right. So if we can replace hemp with cotton, it's going to significantly reduce our pollution in agriculture. Yeah. Also real quick, in terms of food, I mentioned a lot of industrial products, but for food, hemp is very, very healthy. The oil it's the only oil known to man. The seed, the oil comes from the seed. Right. It's the only oil known to man that has the best ratio of EFAs, or essential fatty acids. So it's very, very healthy.
There's one thing I wanted to add about hemp, and this may be the most important thing potentially in terms of the marijuana argument, is that there's a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herrera, and I was reading in that, and he convincingly argues that our government, it's possible our government collaborated with petrochemical corporations during the time that marijuana was outlawed. They outlawed marijuana and hemp. And he argues that this was about the time that these chemical corporations, Dow or DuPont, started creating synthetic chemicals from fossil fuels, from oil.
Plastics.
One thing was the plastics, and also the fibers, the synthetic fibers, acrylic, nylon, polyester. But most importantly, they said one of the main revenue sources for these petrochemical companies was they discovered a chemical to make paper out of trees. So right around the time hemp and marijuana were outlawed was right around the time that these chemical companies learned to make paper out of trees. So the argument becomes, it's possible that these big money interests and their political allies possibly have more to fear from the legalization of hemp than marijuana, because they're making billions of dollars in profit off of making paper out of trees and making these synthetic fibers. I mean, a lot of our camping supplies, things like that, are made out of these synthetic fibers, ropes, etc. We could be making a lot of this out of natural hemp fibers. And so billions of dollars in profit are being threatened. But I would argue too, though, that there's people arguing that we may be running out of oil. We're going to reach peak oil soon, so there could come a point when we're actually forced to move to hemp.
Which is really interesting about that too, because I mean, before hemp was suppressed, I mean, one of our greatest entrepreneurs, in this country, Henry Ford, had hemp oil as the running fuel for the Model T.
Right. And not only that, but the body was actually made from a hemp composite. So the car itself was made from hemp. And there's a famous video of him taking a sledgehammer to the back of a trunk and the dent popping out, and then he does it to a steel-bodied frame, and the dent's there.
So instead of making all these products around our house with plastics, which every day we're finding out some of them are toxic, our toys that our children put in their mouths. I mean, we have all these plastics that are potentially toxic, and we could be making them out of hemp particle composites.
I think we found the exact reason why hemp is probably illegal. And let me tie this back into the hypocrisy of the Controlled Substance Act. Hemp is classified along with regular marijuana as a Schedule I substance, which is the most dangerous.
Along with heroin, LSD.
Yes.
No medicinal value.
And it's no value whatsoever according to the Controlled Substances Act. And what we need is something different than the Controlled Substance Act, because what that is just completely not based on any science, not based on any thoughtful evaluation as to what these drugs actually, their harm is to society, but rather it is all politicized.
Right, and the Controlled Substances Act is very much debated on the constitutionality of it, because, I mean, where with alcohol and the prohibition that was associated with it as compared to the marijuana prohibition, alcohol, you had to have an amendment to the Constitution. I mean, you had to have Congress go with you in 3/4 of the states. But, Nixon comes in and then, does the Controlled Substances Act automatically. It's considered not medicinal, and it's completely outlawed. So,
Ryan, can you define for us real quick the difference between hemp and marijuana for those who don't know?
Well, hemp, the industrial hemp, does not produce the flower or the marijuana, or the bud that you smoke or ingest or cook with to get the intoxicating effect. So hemp looks very kind of similar. It has the classic marijuana pot leaf, but it usually grows much taller. It's much thinner. You can grow up to 20 feet tall. And most of the times marijuana plants are more like Christmas trees, and growers, grow them so that they can maximize the yield. But I mean, the leaves look the same, but the hemp lacks the flower that you get high from.
Doesn't it have one of the longest fibers or something?
Yeah, the hemp plant has one of the longest fibers known to man. I mean, cotton, for example, can be 1 to 2 centimeters long. Right. Hemp fibers can be the whole length of the plant.
We used to make all of our ropes and sails for our ships out of them.
I'll add one more thing to that is, a hemp farmer can tell you that you're not going to be able to grow a regular marijuana plant in a hemp field. It's going to look different, and it's going to cross-pollinate, and it's going to render it, ruin it.
Which is interesting, because I saw an article in a paper a couple years ago, and it was quoting the DEA under Bush as saying, like, oh, we can't have hemp crops in North Dakota or whatever there was. They were trying to grow hemp. We can't have that because people would be putting marijuana plants in the field. And I was like, no, you can't do that.
You could almost call hemp anti-marijuana, because it will cross-pollinate and ruin the marijuana crop.
It would ruin it because it would fill it with seeds.
So that's one of the law enforcement's reasons why hemp should not be legal. Another one of the reasons is that they won't be able to tell the difference from the air. And to me, that's just a complete joke. I mean, in Canada, they do it fine, and all the other countries, they do it fine. And it's something called GPS, and it's something called registering your farm with the government and letting them know you're growing hemp. Right. And so when they fly over and they see something that looks like marijuana, they know it's hemp because you've registered with them.
Well, that's a great discussion on the drug war and hemp.